There we go. There we go. We're live. We're live. We're live. We're live now, Norma. We're live now, Norma. We just let Norma know. Oh, where is this now? I'll get going in a moment. I'll get going in a moment. Uh, this Beena is so wonderfully marvelous. She does a nice introduction and shares her thought of the day, which is always so profound. While I do all the technical stuff, it's quite a lot of it to do. Uh, and I was thinking, something that's been on my mind is not necessarily the thought of the day. But it's been on my mind for a while now because it's a big deal. It's been very profound to me, and it connects very indirectly to this chapter. Because this chapter is very much about somebody being stuck. Right, Boynall is stuck, and Boynall is behaving in ways which don't make sense to himself. And that's a very big deal. This is a very, very big deal that we can do this. Hold on just 1 second. Hang it, Facebook. I just want to wait until. Oh, Norma's here. Yes, yes, I'm fine, Norma. Yes, I'm fine. Okay, good. So I don't have to let you know. I was looking to mark it as featured, but you're already here. Wonderful, Norma. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That's great. Yes, I'm most well indeed. Most well. No complaints. No complaints. Uh, lately, last couple of weeks since I got this flu, I've been sleepy. Even though I slept well, I slept a lot. I went to bed very early. Still not getting enough sleep, and that's just because the flu keeps mutating, right? So you have to keep resting extra, even though I don't feel it now. My analogy is like, in the old days where the castles and the barbarians are attacking you. What we typically do when we're getting sick, that's when we're responding to the barbarians once they're inside the gates. Uh, if you're sick, they've already come in. But if you pay attention, and I made a big study of this, right? If you pay close attention and you look at the overall pattern of things, which it's not easy to do, right? You have to set a constant mechanism of alertness to notice things and then put it all together after the fact, right? So you have to kind of record things in a way. Anyway, but if you pay attention to before you get ill, you say, well, how can I do that? I don't know when I'm getting ill. Exactly. You have to have that attention going kind of all the time, right? If you pay attention to before you get ill, but I'm talking about like flus and colds and stuff like that, right? You'll notice that before you get ill, you always get unreasonably tired. Where you feel fine, but like, hey man, how come I'm sleepy? I slept enough last night. And sometimes you may even have slept extra than the night before, right? It's like, man, I slept 10 hours and now I'm still sleepy. That's when your body is sending its forces outside the castle gates to go and defend against and get rid of the barbarians before they come into the castle, right? Well, this is a very big deal. It's a very, very big deal. And if you pay attention to that and you sleep unreasonably extra, then you don't end up getting sick usually, right? So this is a very important thing to understand. It's very, very critical to understand that your body is preemptive, right? When it notices the barbarians outside the gates, it has scouts going on, it sees the infiltrators, whatever, right? And it does this. Yeah, yeah. So this is a very important part. Yeah. Oh, just making a notice here, letting the people in the chat know that the live is on. I just find it so interesting how so many are keen on the chats, but they don't want to come and attend the live. And you can have live chat directly, immediately. They never come. It's fascinating. One person once came, or at least they said they were going to come from the chats now. Other people have come. I don't expect people to come. It's just puzzling to me that you don't avail yourself of this opportunity. It seems a little odd. Anyway, so I was saying about sleeping unreasonably. Now, this is very important. This to pay attention. If you have this need to sleep unreasonably, don't say no, but I shouldn't be tired. And it's a very classic case of where we get corrupted by this idea of should. Nonsense. Says who? You should, yes, right? You absolutely should. It's very critical, all right? But you don't realize that you should. So don't let your ego override your body sensibility. Yeah, be careful of that. Be careful of that, right? There are things going on you're not aware of. So you're saying, oh, but I shouldn't be tired. Well, you shouldn't be tired if everything is normal. But if you're under attack, you got the barbarians outside the gates. Well, then you should be tired because you're sending your troops out there, your forces out there. Yeah. Very important. Very, 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 very important. This big deal. Anyway, back to my theme and force of the day. Sorry, Norma, I was answering your question there. You see how you send me off on a whole tangent there. That's why I love your questions. I love it. It's really cool. Um, this or at least it's not my thought of the day or theme of the day. It's been for a while now, probably a couple of weeks by now. And this is about the same underlying abstract theme as in the chapter here. Boynall is behaving and acting in a way which is contrary to what he wants, right? So he says, I want to leave. I want to go. I want to go to this new place. I want to leave. I'm not happy where I'm at. I've been miserable here, etc., etc., right? But he's conflicted. He says, yeah, but my son, well, he's divorced. He's not doesn't have custody of the son, obviously, from his comments. I said, if you're miserable, you're not doing your child much favors. And the amount of interaction he has, he can have that even if he does move, right? Especially in today's world, interacting is not that big of a deal, right? Many ways to interact, and especially if you're miserable, right? Any child would much rather have less interaction with a happy parent than lots of interaction with a miserable parent, right? Sorry, but it's not helpful, right? And what are you teaching your child when you're miserable and unhappy? You're teaching your child to accept miserableness and unhappiness. But the bottom line is the deeper theme for me is that he's behaving in a way that's contrary to himself. Now, as we'll see later on, there are a couple of other factors that come in that are complicating factors. That we'll see. I think it comes in this section, or maybe it came in the other half. I don't know. Uh, but there's a bit of guilt involved too. I don't know if we've come to this part or not, but it doesn't really give away much. At some point, Boynall says, "Oh, he's met somebody over there in this new country that is really has this deep bond with and connection to, right?" And if you read between the lines, you've got to assume, or at least it's highly likely that it's another woman, right? And and so he feels a bit guilty about this, even though he's not with his wife. Now, he didn't say that he's technically divorced, but he certainly doesn't live together. No, maybe he isn't technically divorced. This happens sometimes. But nonetheless, his main reason for going is because the pressure that's now really putting him into a quandary is likely this desire to be with this person, right? But that's a selfish desire. And being a good person, he's now conflicted because, well, it seems like from what he says, well, not seems like it, from what he says, this has come up many times before, wanting to leave, and then he doesn't leave. He's never had quite enough pressure and momentum to do it. but this time was extra, right? So he couldn't quite bring himself to go and leave, but now there's this extra measure to go and leave. And well, the extra point here is this woman in his life, right? But he feels guilty about that, so he's again conflicted, right? Now, in Boynall's case, it's he's taking one desire and transferring it into something else because he doesn't want to face and deal with that desire, right? Because he sees it as an awful truth. Now, that's the key point here, right? The unwillingness to face and deal with the awful truth. So what has come up for me in the last couple of weeks, and it's been somewhat of a theme, and it's a very big deal, and I've been paying attention to it, is this facing and dealing the awful truth has always been a big deal. But how that materializes or manifests in our lives in particular, right? And that is really interesting because it can do so in ways that are very unexpected. Now, we don't always recognize the awful truth as an awful truth, right? That's very often the case. Well, we're a bit arrogant. Typically, arrogant people don't recognize that they're arrogant, so they don't get to face the awful truth that they're arrogant, right? Because they don't see it. This is what makes them arrogant, of course, that blindness. All right. However, we have others that are more subtle, right? Much, much, much more subtle. And that is, for instance, like and this is the big point that I came to realize, that anger can be transformed sadness, right? Now, I'm not saying it always is this. I'm saying it can be. And I think we can transform other emotions that we don't want to deal with, so likewise, into different emotions. It doesn't have to be sadness into anger. It can be pain into anger. It can be pain into sadness. It doesn't matter, right? But I noticed this with anger in particular, and also based on personal experience, and because that we feel so much and we have so much goodness and there is so much sadness in the world, right? That to actually tap into that sadness is too overwhelming. Yeah, it is way, way, way too overwhelming, and that sadness can lead to depression, right? And if you realize that you have this capacity, especially if you have sort of an immersiveness to you, like I do, I have lots of intensity, I have lots of earnestness, and I'm very thorough and very detailed and scrupulous about things. So once I get involved with something, I tend to get involved very fully in it. And it's very useful ability to do this. But not when it comes to sadness, which it can lead to depression, right? I can't afford to start on that slippery slope of depression because once I start, I go all the way, right? And I realized this as a teenager when depression came up and came into conversation and into awareness. It was never a thing because that's sort of at a time when psychoanalysis and going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, it became a thing, right? It became to be accepted and popular. Yes, it was around a long time before, but but the regular people didn't go to psychiatrists and that, right? Until that time, it started to be more socially acceptable, and then you know. I guess another decade or two, it became where it's like, well, everybody's got a psychologist or psychiatrist, right? It just became a default thing, which is also a bit peculiar. But that's a longer story, and that's just because it's not particularly effective uh, because of focusing on problems only, right? You can't, if you solve your problem, that doesn't mean you've got a solution. Yeah. In other words, if I solve my debt, it doesn't mean I have a solution. I just have no debt now, but I still don't have a means to make income, right? So we need that replacement. But anyway, I digress. So this understanding of depression and how it's a slippery slope and how can't go into sadness, but there's so much of it around, and especially if you're a feeling, caring person, right? and we don't really learn how to feel appropriately, and we think we should feel sad. Well, now you're in a bit of a bind, right? And you have this problem, right? Which is you don't want to feel sad, but you don't also want to not feel sad. Huh? Well, yeah, because if I don't feel sad, that means I'm a bad person because I don't care. Of course, this is false logic, but that's how we believe and we think, right? And the sadness is just so profound, right? You don't want to give up caring about the world. You don't want to give up on your goodness, at least so you believe, right? It's false logic, but we'll get into that another time, right? So this awful truth of the sadness, and there's not much one can do about it, right? Until you learn to understand the grand scheme of things, this is very frustrating, and frustration that cannot be realized leads to potentially a way to deal with that is anger, right? That's how we think we can deal with frustration that cannot be satisfied, and likewise with things like sadness that we can't deal with, right? Instead of feeling the sadness, and then instead of feeling the frustration, well, the frustration comes from not wanting to feel the sadness or not being able to deal with it, and then you end up with the anger to deal with the frustration, right? See the whole chain of emotions there. But realizing that we feel anger because we don't want to feel sadness, that kind of pops that bubble, as it were, right? And then you don't feel either sadness or anger because you can find other ways to deal with it, right? And the other ways of dealing with it is way of impeccability, and the new nobility way, right? Nobilia-Living, this whole concept of moreness, right? Understanding the bigger picture, understanding how it all works, understanding the purpose and point of the universe, seeing the grand sense of it, seeing the perfection of it, right? This is the big deal of it. That's why book 2 is called The Perfection of Now, right? It's a very, very, very powerful understanding. And the point is that we need to enhance and develop our awareness to deal with these problems. But I just want to focus on this one understanding that we tend to transmute our emotions, right, into something else. So if you're feeling something, and I used to get angry when I was a young man, and it really bothered me because it never made sense to me. I could never quite click the logic of it, right? And until I put that together, right? That's a very big deal, a very, very big deal to put this together. Huge deal, right? A massive, massive deal to understand this. Very powerful, very useful to be aware of. That when we feeling things that we can't handle it, can't deal with. We deal with it and handle it by transmuting it or transforming it into something else. Yeah? I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And we don't quite see it with Boynall, but we do see some transmuting going on in this. That he's not quite able to be fully honest, and that's the big deal. In when it comes to participants of all the various programs that I have, particularly Way of Impeccability, because that's the core one. That's where it starts. The key to this is, and the one thing that are absolutely essential and that I require, right? And if you're not willing to do that, then you can't do the programs. This is absolute 100% self honesty, right? You cannot be self-honest, forget it. There's no way that you are going to be able to truly learn and change, right? Because, well, and to live deliberately. This is the point of Way of Impeccability, the point of nobility, the point of Nobilia-Living, the point of the whole new nobility way, which is what we discussing, right? Because we're not just reading this book. This book is the core of a big program called Nobleness, Nobility, Being Noble, right? Which is taking Way of Impeccability to its ultimate in a particular direction. It's not the only ultimate, it's ultimate in a particular direction. Let's just be very clear about that, right? this is very, very important, because many options in life, many ways to be. Yeah. All right. And this self-honesty is absolutely crucial. Without that self-honesty, you can forget it. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going anywhere. None of it is going to work. Right? Uh, because we can't grow without being self-honest. If I can't admit that something can be improved, something can be changed, because if we got too much ego, then, oh, well, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to admit that I was wrong. It's just all rubbish, man. There's no wrongness and rightness. There's just learning. There's just more awareness or less ignorance, however you want to call it. Same thing, right? So there's no wrong to it. You learn stuff, and then, well, you learn a bit more. And, it's like, okay, you take anybody who plays a musical instrument. When you practice and you do this, and all right, well, I've learned something. I can play a bit better now than I did yesterday or last week. Did that mean last week you were all wrong? No, you just didn't know more. You just, didn't have the opportunity to improve more. Uh, yeah, it's just this whole thing of thinking it's all wrong and all this. Nah, it's the right wrong thinking is terrible. Focus on understanding. Forget about right and wrong. Forget about agree and disagree. Focus on understanding. Focus on learning, on growing. Enjoy learning and growing. Right? If you take your ego out of it, you're just honest. Well, I didn't know that. Okay, well, duh. Yeah, it's no big deal, right? Just remove your disconnected from your ego. Just because you didn't know it, so what? I mean, do you have to feel bad now because there's a zillion things you don't know? No, of course not, right? It's foolishness. So don't get caught up in this conventionality of society and the superiority paradigm. It's just rubbish. Norma says, or run away. Hey, yeah, we create our own emotions. Exactly. Hello, hello, Jessica. Not only honesty with ourselves first. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Deliberate self honesty. Absolutely. And this is the magic of deliberate living, right? Because to be deliberate means one is doing something willingly, willfully in the positive sense, right? With your will, with your intent. And also, deliberateness specifically means we are being absolutely conscious of what we are doing, right? We know what we're doing and we're aware of what we're doing. And being deliberate means we are choosing what we want to do, right? And we are able to put into action what we have chosen to do, right? That's all part and part of deliberateness. And that's why deliberateness is so incredibly, brilliantly awesome, right? Deliberate living, when we do things because we want to, we're motivated, and we're energized, right? Because we want to be doing it, right? And it changes everything. We are able to do so much more when we are deliberate, right? And what we do when we deliberate is so much easier, right? And so much more fun, and so much more awesome and fantastic, right? So being deliberate is completely and utterly, massively transformative, right? It's huge. It's a big deal. So deliberate living is absolutely essential. And here's the key now. See, paying attention to when we are doing things that don't make sense to ourselves, right? Like that anger. All right. We want to be really, really understand this. Yes. And we want to be aware. And as soon as we do things that don't make sense, we need to start paying attention. Right? So that we can then figure out, hey, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? This is very important, very, very important. Right? So again, we start looking at the subtleties of what am I missing? What am I not getting? What am I not understanding? All right. This is very important. This is really key. And if we pay attention in this chapter, Boynall and the Anomalies, this is one long chapter, and there's more coming in the next chapter too. But this chapter in particular, it is an exemplification of capital H hearing, right? And Biella takes time to hear Boynall. Now, this particular conversation between Biella and Boynall, right? It's an actual conversation that took place. Well, not between Biella and Boynall, but the what they say the actual words, not the environment, not the or the other stuff that's around it, right? It's just a change of circumstance, but the actual conversation is a real one, right? Very, very real. And in that conversation, essentially, this was while I was writing the book and this came into my life. It's an anomalous conversation that came about, right? Now, I've had similar extended conversations many, many times. Jessica can tell you, right? Capital H hearing, where we discuss something and you're paying attention and things get resolved and worked out, right? But this one is a bit peculiar in this, right? So pay attention here, Jessica, to how much Boynall repeats himself. Now we're going to start halfway through because this is a very long chapter and we did the other half last week already. But nonetheless, you'll see even in this half here how he repeats himself. Most people don't realize how much they do this, right? Um, that they repeat themselves, right? But when it's written out, when you see a transcript, you'll see, wow. So, but Biella is showing, right? Her mandate is to show what it is to be a new noble, what it is to be a new noble, right? So it's to show what it is to be. And this is what it's not, it's not like they therapist or counselors, it's just one of the many, many things that they do. But she's showing the care, the patience, the consideration, the capital H hearing, the willingness to wait and let it work out, not to rush, not to present opinions and ideas, right? And Boynall is just, I mean, this is just a universe that brought this incredible example of this conversation where it's like, you know, quite extreme in his sort of obtuseness and stuckness and how much actually capital H hearing is absolutely required here. The caring, the nobility of it, right? To go that extra mile, to do bonus goodness that's not needed. Yeah. Yeah. So Jessica says growth begins with being deliberately honest with oneself. Absolutely. It's so crucial. And also when it comes to being honest, and this is what was so beneficial for you, we tend to assume being self-honest is acknowledging our faults and flaws and mistakes. No. Typically, we just are misbehaving, but out of goodness, not out of badness. We don't know how to deal with our goodness. We get overwhelmed with our goodness, right? Um, there's a really, really excellent TV series called Deadwood. Yes, it's very violent, all right? Don't watch it if you don't care for violence. However, if you look at the subtle theme, that whole show is about people struggling and finding it really, really difficult or even impossible to deal with their goodness. And they struggle and they do all sorts of crazy things. Like, I mean, really, they're sometimes very bad things, but all because they don't know how to deal with their goodness. It's quite incredible. It's quite incredible. Yes, it's very important. Yes. In being deliberately honest with oneself, we let go of our egotistical sides. Absolutely. Absolutely. When we are truly honest, right, I say, I'm nothing compared to the universe. I'm nothing compared to the universe. However, I am something compared to nothing. This is honesty. Yes. So if I have a skill, well, yes, I have a skill. Yes, like me, I have the skill of capital H hearing. I'm not being egotistical. I'm simply telling the truth. I spent a lot of time practicing and developing it. That doesn't mean anything either. I have other skills which I don't know, just happen to be, and just lucky to have them, right? And some skills like capital H hearing, I had to work very, very hard to develop. Same with patience, right? So I can say I've got ridiculous patience. Well, that's just true. Anybody who knows me knows this, right? I'm not being egotistical. I'm just being truthful, right? Yes, am I an nincompoop? Yeah, absolutely. It's also just the truth. So what? It's only a so what if we have ego. Yeah? We don't have ego. Yeah, I'm a nincompoop. So what? I don't care if you think I'm a nincompoop or anybody else thinks I'm a nincompoop or if it's true that I'm a nincompoop. I don't care because it's true, right? So in order to care about it, and have it be a thing like ego, then you have to start lying about it. Well, and the one thing that ego does not understand, right? Very important point here, and this is fundamental to all narcissism. Yeah, you cannot make a truth into an untruth. It's just not possible. They try and try and try and try, but they can't do it, right? But they keep trying, right? And this is what ego is all about, right? In other words, bullshit. Yeah, that's it. That's what bullshit is trying to make a truth into an untruth. Yeah. And it's why this whole superiority paradigm starts with bullshit and grows up from there, right? It's just bullshit to the extreme. Right? I mean, what is war and rape and murder and all this stuff? But bullshit. Yeah. So understand this, right? Self-honesty is very key. Don't tolerate bullshit inside yourself, because if you do, it piles on and piles on and piles on, and eventually you live in bullshit, and well, that's not fun, right? It's very important, very, very important. All right, so this just I want to just reiterate this point that our sadness can materialize or manifest as anger, irritation, botheration, upsetness, worry, whatever, right? But so often that sadness anger connection is very clear, very obvious, and likely this is the case with CJ also, right? You see that, we see the frustration and the anger, but we don't necessarily make the connection to the sadness. And once you do, I think this is going to be a big deal. So I haven't had a chance to share this with Sher yet, Jessica, but I will. Right? And just for yourself, I think that you're willing to share, and you open about stuff that goes on with you, right? And I think if you look back at your life when you had a lot of anger in your life, you'll realize that it transmuted, transformed, and dealable sadness, right? Because if you have to deal with the sadness, it wipes you out. So sadness here is an awful truth you cannot deal with, and you find a way to deal with it. But once we understand this connection, then we say, do I have to deal with it that way? No, I don't have to be overwhelmed with sadness. I can be aware it's there, right? And still care about things, but I don't have to feel it. I can choose what I feel, right? So it doesn't make me less caring. It just makes me not immersing into the sadness. That's all, right? So we have to really think about this and make peace with it. It's very powerful. And this is the other thing, right? To make peace with these awful truths and consequences and ideas, right? And this is the same thing with Boynall here. He doesn't want to make peace with stuff that's, well, there's going to be an unpleasantness to this thing that you got to do. Well, tough luck, dude. You just got to suck it up and do it, right? I shared with him so much and also showed him I know that he's dealing with immense sadness. Yeah, but make that connection. I know you've shared this with him, but make the connection between not being able to handle the sadness because we don't want to be overwhelmed with it and end up depressed, right? And also then not being able to deal with the frustration of not being able to do something about the sadness, right? So we need to learn how to care. We need to learn to have appropriate caring, right? And do the little bit that you can. You can't solve it all. But if you go a little bit deeper into that, there is a logic to that. Why? Because people got to learn for themselves too, right? And this is the key. So if you want to help people, first help yourself, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, I imagine so. I imagine so. But really making that very, very clear connection between sadness, frustration to anger. I think that will help him a lot to understand this, because I don't think he fully understands it himself, right? So he may have to repeat it many times, for it to settle in and click. It's very powerful. All right, so I'm going to now read the rest of this chapter here. And so, Jessica, since you're here now in particular, pay attention to the capital H hearing, and pay attention to how Boynall expresses himself, right? And because when we are on the hearing side, the receiving end, and we're listening to somebody, we don't quite always realize how much they don't hear us. We hearing them loud and clear, right? But if you pay attention here, Boynall doesn't always hear, and he doesn't want to acknowledge when he doesn't hear. So this is a very, very powerful exemplification of the dynamic between when somebody's stuck and, well, he's not a massively egotistical guy, but he is caught in some self-beliefs that we're going to see come through. And it's very, very powerful stuff. So, I'm saying, to not so much pay attention to the actual story part, but in the more abstract, to the pattern, to how he repeats, to how he doesn't want to, take those extra steps and do and apply. He's not aware that, hey, you can have all the understanding you like, but you have to apply it, right? Now, you know this already, but it's nice to see this and all these different patterns and points and, stuff that's still underneath it that's holding him back, beliefs that are messed up that's holding him back. Right? It's very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. All right. So here we go. I'm going to read through to the end of the chapter as we're halfway through this chapter now. This is chapter 15. It's called Boynal and Anomalies. So this is part 2 of the chapter, and then we'll discuss afterwards. In the week when we do the lives, then we go line by line or chapter by paragraph by paragraph. We do it more detailed, capital R reading. So now I'm just reading the whole thing, and then we'll get to it afterwards. All right, brilliant. But feel free to make comments. As I read, I'll cast a glance there every now and then, and if appropriate, I'll comment on them, and we can discuss them, or we'll leave it till the end, right? Depending, right? I'll just take it as it comes. All right, here we go. Norma, you still with us? I hope so. I hope so, Norma. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Like Beena said, this chapter is where things get very real, very, very real, right? And this by design, because there's a lot of wonderful stuff in the book, but I wanted to show this real side, right? Because Nobilia, it's a fantastical place, but also it's founded on realness, right? The underlyingness is realness. So you get to see the whole, or everything. You see the underpinnings now. All right, here we go. Part 2 of chapter 15, Boynall and the Anomalies. Boynall returned to his earlier thread. I have been waiting, and I am not sure if I am closing doors that should be closed. I don't want to go back to the job I hate, and life has brought me to a point now that I have a few things, and the fear is that I keep going back and doing the same again. But it doesn't last long before I can't handle it. Something is urging me to move. And by the way, said Biella, I can't even begin to tell you the confluence of events on my side which conspired to make our conversation connected to more. It's amazing. Way, way, way beyond coincidence, Biella added, emphasizing the concurrence. And this is the expression of how Boynall just so wonderfully fits into her mandate, right? He's this materialization from the universe that is making her able to show, right? This has come a bit before in the first part of the chapter. That's why I'm making a break to explain it a bit, right? And it's connected to that. It's incredible. It's just miraculous. It's just fantastic. It's anomalous, right? And the whole theme is all about anomalies, right? She was keen for Boynall to make that connection to the magic of connecting to the universe via anomalies. She did not want to force the attention. Boynall had ignored all the earlier comments concerning this connection and the anomalies. Perhaps an uncomfortable topic or too far outside his comfort zone. Biella would add references as appropriate and hope the connection was made. Anomalies, the missing piece of the puzzle for Boynall. He doesn't want to admit to his ignorance. There's self-honesty here, right? That's it. It's fascinating. You'll see later how this works out. She added, yes, closing doors is critical to the process. Your house always has to be in order. Nothing holding you back. That's part of the impeccability. To snip all the strings neatly, tie off all outstanding energies thoroughly. Boynall continued. I was speaking to someone else who was from this area. She just made friends with me. And she said herself she had to just get up and go. A pause. Then Boynall asked, in order, even financially? I seem to be at a point of financial downward spiral. Not the first time, but I now feel it is, because I keep doing what my soul doesn't want for me. Yes, everything that needs doing, Biella said, as if you were never coming back, as if possibly going to a place that has no connection. It probably won't be so, but it's the preparedness. It's associated with your intent. If you still have ties, outstanding open ends, how serious is your intent to truly move on to a new phase of your life? Biella was going somewhere with her comments. There's another path to all this. It is connected, another way of perceiving it all. And that's the intimate connection to our wants. A fine, fine perspective. So bear with me here. First, there's the learning to want nothing. Then, whatever we get is a great gift. Unhooking from wants, freedom from wants in that sense, lets us enjoy pretty much everything. Hey, I understand, Boynall said. I was thinking about making myself bankrupt, but this I don't know. And closing all this behind me, or just canceling everything and going with what I have and letting what happens happen. He left the thought incomplete. Biella filled out the perspective. Then we can enjoy whatever we can. Simply enjoy and immerse in whatever is appropriate. The alignment with appropriateness as our guiding force is key. The alignment with appropriateness as our guiding force is key. But the problem is the goal or motivation appropriateness is connected to. Biella was surprised at how she was expressing herself. It seemed as if the order of her words were coming out reversed. She would wait to see where it led. She trusted it would be significant. If not, she would repeat and restate later. Boynall seemed to connect to Biella's expressions. I think I have been seeking to want, and this is what keeps me stuck. Yet I know I understand nothing, and the universe wants what is best for us if we trust. Wow. Biella, in that sense, it is alignment with the goal of developing and enhancing awareness and our spiritual growth, which becomes the motivation. Once that alignment is made, it's easy. Wow. Wow. Once that alignment is made, it's easy. Boynall, I think I understand. Oh, Biella, once we know internally we are never going to do anything for crappy reasons. We are never going to be indulgent or want badness, for instance. We can trust our wants. I mean, this is our personal definitions of badness in the context of appropriateness. Biella smiled at the group, asking for allowance and leeway with her expression. Eluminia helped. These types of conversations are immense gifts, but only if we allow them. Allow them in every sense of it. Allow them to happen. Allow them space. Allow them time. Allow them to flow and develop as they must. If we look and observe from an abstract point of view, we will see the same pattern in a conversation like this as we do in life or in a period of a life. But we have to trust. We have to be prepared to stick with it, not give up on it. Persevere and persist until there is resolution, until we have something we can take away, something we can actually use and apply. Something we can actually use and apply. Another message from Boynall. The more we plan, the less plans happen how we thought. I don't want badness. I've had enough of it in my life. Yet I don't want to hurt anyone else either. And this is what's holding me here. It takes time for things to surface and work their way out of the depths of ourselves. Eluminia said to the group. It takes time for things to surface and to work their way out of the depths of ourselves, Eluminia said to the group. Biella continued. We come to a point where our inner thoughts compass where our inner compass of want is now aligned with everything. We come to a point where our inner compass of want is now aligned with everything. Since whatever we want is always good, is always impeccable, at that point we can do precisely what it is we want. I mean, most precisely and intimately, no matter how illogical it may seem. Boynall said, it seems totally illogical what I am contemplating to do, but I see it may lead to better things if I do. Biella toggled the speech to text. Eluminia acted as translator. For the new nobility, conversations like this present a difficulty. Boynall has not asked for help specifically. Yes, he asked her a specific question, but it was almost abstract. The difficulty lies in not presuming we know what is needed. Because of the depth and sophistication of perspective, Biella has to be careful of inadvertently communicating in such a way it could be perceived as advice. Advice can be useful and good, yes, but it has to be taken under advisement, and always it has to be asked for. Eluminia smiled, a small laugh. May I actually add that in there? Continuing, she said, we have to figure things out for ourselves. We have to be supplied with the materials to build our own path. But in the end, we have to put them together ourselves. We have to come to that point of understanding ourselves. It is why Biella did not push the point about anomalies. Boynall has to grab it for himself. When he does grab onto it, then he can ask a way to clear up any confusion. If he asks specifically, he will free Biella to give more focused replies. For now, he is sharing, and Biella is sharing in return. Biella responded to Boynall's last message. Yes, that is the key. To trust, to recognize your intent to goodness, to know that you have it. Once you know you have a strong intent to goodness, then it's simply a matter of learning to trust that intent to goodness. And of course, waiting until the last second, staying completely open to external input. It seems that magic tests us that way. Boynall replied, I know inside of me I don't want to hurt my son, but I know he will hurt also if he is raised in the place I was. Then sometimes I think I am overthinking. I'm excited for you, Biella said. I am keen to hear what that incredible, amazing external input will be. I have 3 friends right now, all simultaneously in the exact same process. Amazing. Yes, everything is a bane. The speech to text made a rare mistake. Biella had said boon, most anomalous. She had not seen a mistake like it. Biella pointed to the oddity. Eluminia said, Biella meant boon, but she will leave it. It allows us to see Boynall's level of immersion. When we are immersed in our own story, we don't pick up on the anomalous. It is an ordinary anomaly from Boynall's perspective, a magical one from ours. Boynall added, I am the only one around here. I have been alone now for coming up to 2 years to get to here, and I have no wanting to go back into the world I came from. Biella looked at Eluminia, who said, throughout Boynall's messages there have been many oddities, nothing anomalous in themselves, but taken as a collection, very anomalous. And it seems anomalies have come to us as the theme of the day. For the new nobility, from their constant abstract perspective, they come to see patterns or themes. See if you can just refresh, Norma, or go to the yeah, I'll send you the link, and just try it again, and just leave and come back, and then you'll likely see the comments, right? And also, well, if you're on the phone, I don't know how that works, but if you're on the computer, click on the, in the where it shows in the feed on in group, right, as a post, you see the video playing there, but click on the video so that you go kind of inside it, and the comments move from underneath to the right hand side on the computer, and then they refresh in real time, right? Other than that, just refresh, just refresh, and if you're not sure, I sent you the link there in Messenger, right? Then just get out of it, close Facebook, and then tap on the link again. It'll open Facebook, and that will refresh it then, right? Yeah, brilliant. Anomalies have come to us as the theme of the day. For the new nobility, from their constant abstract perspective, they come to see patterns or themes. During this entire conversation, anomalies and Boynall's need to connect to them are the critical ingredient. It is the one single thing he needs to figure out and incorporate into his life to break free. His dilemma is he has no way to break the deadlocks of his thinking, no way to access information beyond what he knows. Outside leverage is exactly what he needs. Eluminia paused, needing to get back on track. The lack of him even asking about it in any way is odd, anomalous. It sets anomalies as a potential topic, but that alone is not enough. He may, for instance, view it as something too weird for him and doesn't want to get into it because they are the collection of oddities together. But they are the collection of oddities. Together they are anomalous. Now we are starting to build a theme. Shortly before you came, Biella had said something. All she had said was, the inordinate made manifest. The way she said it led me to believe it was a summation or encapsulation of something she'd been thinking about. Biella nodded confirmation. Right, and just a little quick aside here, since we're not reading it in one go, this is where the chapter starts. Biella's reflecting and contemplating very early in the morning. And then she gets this message, and at the exact same time as the com pings and says there's a message, there's a knock on the door. And it's the group and everybody extra, all the delegates and everybody there, all come extraordinarily early, right? Very anomalous. But that was what she had been really focused on. And not just regular thinking, but that special type of thinking of deep, deep, potent, focused attention, capital A attention. When we really put that kind of attention on something, it tends to materialize in our lives, right? So it's a very, very big deal. So she has this, the inordinate made manifest, and she was actually contemplating this as the theme in her life over the last short time, right? With everything that's gone on with the delegates and everything, right? So this is more inordinate made manifest now. The way she had said, this is Eluminia commenting on what Biella had said. The way she had said it led me to believe it was a summation or encapsulation of something she'd been thinking about. Biella nodded confirmation. Adding it all together, we have a theme, Eluminia continued. Themes like this are in the anomaly family. There are many, many different kinds. They all have one thing in common. They come from our greater selves or from the universe, depending how one wishes to see it. Of course, in different places, there are many, many other names and ways of describing the source. The new nobility use those two as their neutrality and two for their neutrality and lack of implication. Well, relatively. But the essential issue is that a theme as part of the anomaly family is something coming from outside of us. We see it clearly here. Illumineva swiveled in her chair, leaning towards Ursula, zooming in on her, and said quickly, almost fiercely, what's the key point here, Ursula? Quickly, quickly. This intensity from Eluminia took Ursula completely by surprise. To Ursula's great credit, she strove to answer. Now, now, Eluminia pressed, but politely. Ursula, clearly not sure of her answer, released. Anomalies are extremely, utterly, critically important. Yes, 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 Illumina exclaimed with much joyful enthusiasm. She jumped up and did a mini dance and twirl. Laughing cheerfully, she grinned at Ursula. I had an intuition to trust your intuition, to show you that you can trust your intuition. But later on that. Now the point is that communications or input from outside of ourselves is very, very, very important to the new nobility. Eluminia leaned conspiratorially towards Ursula, whispering loudly, well, okay, it was kind of obvious. Quick, quick, attention back to the group. She grinned fiercely at everyone, willing them, it seemed, to grasp the importance of the point. How important? She asked the group with a flourish of her hand, inviting a group response. Very, they chorused, and were rewarded with a glorious smile of triumph from Eluminia. She laughed in sheer happy delight. When she was happy, she made everyone happy, always. But, she said, bringing them all back to the point, why? Why is it so utterly, critically, vitally important? Why are communications from outside of ourselves so vitally important? She swiveled again, this time with an eloquent hand gesture at Biella. Please elucidate, dear Biella. Biella took some time. A huge point, the heart of the way of the new nobility. Otherwise, we would not know what to do, Biella said, surprising a few in the room. She smiled with intelligence and resolve, holding the moment for the PowerPoint to fully settle. We do not trust our judgment. So we have found a way to transcend the limitations of our limited awareness. This limited awareness is an unavoidable fact for everyone. We have incorporated the solution into our lifestyle. We have made the solution the central theme of our lifestyle. Wow, 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 wow. That's huge. Biella smiled again and gestured to the messengers waited. Let us rather observe from this perspective. Yeah, let us rather observe from this perspective. Look at the conversation at Boynall's situation from the perspective of what he needs to break his deadlock, his conflict, what it would take for him to find direction. To me, it is the glaring omission, the amazing, obvious missing element to the entire communication. But only so once we are aware it is missing, she said to Boynall. There is the famous detective perspective, which we can apply in a spiritual sense. When we eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. In the spiritual sense, the impossible is you going back to what you hate. Yes, said Eluminia. To give up is to go back is to give up. To give up on your heart, your dream, your growth, your soul, your opportunity to extend yourself. And that, for us, is impossible. Biella displayed the next message from Boynall. The more I try to think I can settle here and build, the less it seems to happen. That is the greater flow I am talking about, Biella said, responding more to Eluminia than Boynall. The more in tune and connected to that abstract, the more we tune in and connect to that abstract pattern of our lives, the easier it becomes to adapt and align ourselves to it. That's when it gets to be really awesome, as long as we never forget what it's all about. The huge picture, the all-encompassing picture. In that picture, it's all about developing and enhancing our awareness, about being able to enhance our ability to be appropriate in any context, no matter how large or how long term. Boynall said, my son is always looking at Karamay. He seems to be drawn to it also. It is Karamay I have a door open to. I seem to be at the last point of letting go and seeing what happens. I can't seem to go down the logical way of trying to do all the worldly things of getting visas. Biella and Eluminia both deliberately raised eyebrows at the use of the word visas, an archaic word. Kinda all makes sense when we look at it that way, Biella said casually, using the old term kinda, a term from the time of the young man. Hey, it is all about the bigger picture of lifting up the consciousness of the world, Boynall said. Hey, it is all about the bigger picture of lifting up the consciousness of the world, Boynall said. If you can physically get to Karamay, Biella said, and if that is where it seems your path is taking you, but technicalities of paperwork and such seem to be an obstacle, I can only say from experience they aren't an issue. Biella knew of nowhere in the agglomeration where this wouldn't be true. She and Eluminia had traveled extensively, including outside the ag. Even there, paperwork was typically less an issue than one would think. Maybe I am trying to think too logically and just needing to go with the flow and see what happens. I can get in for 3 months on a temporary visa, Boynall said. Biella returned to the greater theme. She didn't want to fish too much, sensing on a deep level it would cause problems. What such could be, she had no idea. Yes, about the consciousness of the world. It is key to remember we too are the world. The individual is the world also. Ay, that is all that's needed, Biella added softly. Ay, it is. In reality, isn't it? Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I suppose, Boynall said. Biella had eased up, hoping to bring forth the rest from Boynall, but he needed more. Logic is irrelevant sometimes. Well, regular logic anyway. There is a meta-logic. That meta-logic becomes apparent the more we tune into the greater abstract flow of our lives, that flow connecting to enhancing our individual awareness. Biella thought this would be a good time to explain more of the new nobility's underlying perspective on the way things worked. Everything, I mean everything, is geared to assisting that process of awareness, enhancement, and development. But in this context, we can only get assistance, aids, hints, suggestions, prompts sometimes maybe, or impossible situations from which we have to extricate ourselves. But in the end, we have to work things out for ourselves using this external input and aid. It can't ever be cut and dried clear instructions. Then it would become programming, which would defeat the goal of developing and enhancing awareness. That can only happen within the individual awareness itself. Biella laughed good-naturedly, easing the intensity. Think of it as if you were doing this to yourself. You have another you that knows exactly what is best, but you can't say it directly because the you that is learning has to learn for itself. Biella decided to take a small chance. She wanted to test something, a potential theory. She slipped into the phrasing from the time of the young man and said, then it becomes very cool because we see how all the external stuff is so precisely geared to what exactly we like and have preferences for. It's so awesome. Eluminia grinned like a child at this. She shared the amusement of the group. Hey, it is awesome. And I do realize I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. The universe seeks to know answers to the unknown. The universe seeks to know answers to the unknown, Boynall responded. Biella went back to her normal way of speaking. I know exactly where you are. Internally, I mean, that feeling of dread, of irrationality, of illogic, the going against every known sensibility. Nothing I say is going to help with that feeling. But over time, as we learn to trust, it changes from dread to excitement. What an awesome conversation, by the way. Thanks immensely for messaging me. A huge gift for me. So cool. She threw in incongruous so cool, but it seemed to make no difference. Camellia spoke up. Camellia spoke up. These conversations are powerful. They affect. Yes, yes, of the world. Very important and far seeing. Yes, Norma. To see that bigger picture and connect what we are doing to the world or to the universe. Makes me wonder about earth and world if we are everything. We are and we aren't. Yes. We are in one perspective, one aspect. We are everything. But in our individual selves, we are a different part looking to gain perspective and understanding on our greater self, right? And we have to be, in order to have consciousness and awareness, we have to be at least two, right? Otherwise, you're just in one bubble and you can't have consciousness. A form of meditation, alias thinking. Yes, yes, Jessica, yes. Oh, I love your comments. I love you guys' comments. It just makes me very happy. Camellia spoke up. These conversations are powerful. They affect. Wow, what a comment from Camellia. It's fantastic. Boynall responded, I have been here before, and when I went with what I didn't know and into the unknown, it all brought me here and helped me heal within. But I am at one of these points again. It wants to know. Oh, excuse me. I needed this conversation, and it is a great gift to me also. Thanks, brother. And thank you also, Biella. Excellent, Biella said. It gets easier and more exciting and gets to a point where we like the process of venturing into the unknown. Biella shifted the focus of the interaction. The stories I started our conversation with are part of a larger story. It is fascinating to see how the individual stories fold into the larger one. I am glad to be a part of your story, Boynall replied. I thought that was the case anyway, Biella. It seems personal how it is expressed, with deep emotions. Biella felt certain there was more to Boynall and his story. She wanted to open up the flow, connect to other areas. That's the amazing thing, how my life is. Everything is interconnected. I had no intention of connecting your story to my greater one. It just flowed from appropriateness. I'll explain. When I went to sleep, I was still immersed in the story of another friend, also at the crossroad. I was awake unusually early. I saw your message, and my story came literally to my doorstep. I was still a bit half asleep when we started. Those stories were still deep within me. I just ran with them, and they are so completely applicable to you. It all flowed from there. Biella hoped the continued reference to story would connect with Boynall. She's talking about this friend is Hela, right? Who was also at this crossroad, a similar crossroad in the abstract, right? Actually, identical precisely in that Hela also needs to connect to the anomalies. And since she had such a deep, profound, intense communication and interaction and connection and the deep friendship with Hela, right? This necessity for anomalies, which Hela mentions also, but doesn't quite get, right? Now, here's Boynall's conversation. It's tailor made for Hela to see this all. What she needs to see, it's coming to her as a gift, right? And not only Biella's intent, but also Illuminia's intent. And one would, well, one can say quite fairly, Ursula, because Ursula does understand about anomalies already, even though she's very new to it. The three of them and their intent and their deep bonding there with the great trees has made this materialization of the intent for Hela to get precisely and exactly what she needs, which is a deep and thorough explanation of anomalies, right? And we're getting it multiple times here with Boynall because he doesn't get it, right? So it comes. Same point. It's absolutely fascinating, right? How these came into the bigger story of the book from real conversations that were, and the intent of the book is to show the new nobility how they live. And of course, anomalies is a big deal. So it all fits in the bigger meta theme and even outside the box of the story, right? Outside the box, there's the anomalies of these conversations coming because Hale is also a real conversation, right? Fascinating. An actual conversation has been transmuted into the story, right? Enfolded, I call it. I enfold them into the story. Because I don't change the dialogue, I just change the surroundings. And there's more. We had a laugh. There's always more. It is a refrain in the larger story. The universe works through people when we are listening, doesn't it? It brings us what we need. Oh, this is Boynall. The universe works through people when we are listening, doesn't it? It brings us who we need, Boynall said. And the more we are in the now, the more these phenomena seem to align. Biella explained. The greatest story has taken many turns, many new developments. I had been thinking deeply about what was important right now, what was an essential element in the greater story, what is perhaps missing or not focused on enough. I was done with my thinking, waiting, looking out for what is to come. When we started, I had forgotten about that, being half asleep, then became consumed in the conversation. But now it's all coming together. I love it when a circle comes together. Biella laughed happily. And yes, Boynall, to being in the now. And in this, it seems to be bringing me to a point of a cycle also that I wasn't willing to see, Boynall said. Good, now we are getting somewhere. Biella considered. It is the capacity to step back and wait when we don't have that feeling of complete wanting to do whatever it is and waiting for that wanting to come again from wherever. That is the trust part. Biella added, I'm listening. Hey, listening to ourselves, may I ask? Because I don't know if I'm overlooking something here. I told my son I was going to be leaving the area, and yesterday when I went to pick him up from his mother's, he came out eating chewing gum. He knows I don't like this as it has aspartame in it. Can this also be the universe saying to me to not leave this area? The word aspartame aroused everyone's interest. While Biella did a search for its meaning, Boynall said, I feel trapped with my feelings of abandoning my son and the bigger picture. Eluminia added to the group, we are starting to get somewhere now. Aspartame was an artificial sweetener which has not been used in centuries, not since the time of the young man. There had been controversy as to its effect on health, Biella informed the group. Now we have a parallel theme, a manifestation of anomaly to illustrate our theme of understanding anomalies. Beside the obvious need for something to break the circle Boynall is spinning in, we now have an actual anomaly. I have been suspecting something like this. Eluminia also. We have a mystery of time, an anomaly out of time. Eluminia, would you please explain in between my comments to Boynall? I do not wish to lose the connection to him by delaying my responses in order to explain. Happy to, said Eluminia, nodding towards the com where messages from Boynall awaited. Biella replied to Boynall, a big jump. It is actually anomalous that he was doing this. But I know his mother will not look after his bed interest. Boynall's message definitely had bed in it. Curious. It would have seemed to be best interest. Uh, or perhaps, Illumina says, it seems, if we pay attention, Boynall's messages aren't being sent with the same level of error connection we expect. That, combined with his word usage, is leading us to an interesting speculation. Biella replied to Boynall, It may be, it may be it also. What's holding you where you are now, that connection to the micromanaging. It is difficult if you see the situation with a mother that way. If you do not have that trust, it is difficult. Eluminia continued. If we had the mystery of the planet he's from, that there is so little information on it, to the odd language usage, to the money problems, the travel restrictions and need for visas, we have a puzzle. Boynall said, best interests, but I am torn between here and somewhere else. The vibration around here is very low. Biella replied, but there is going to come a point where you will have to let go. Your own awareness and spiritual growth will always take precedence in the end. You can only do so much for your son. At some point, he too will be on his own. Yes, it is not as if you will be disconnected from him. I mean, contact via comms will still be there. Illuminia. Between Biella and I, we don't know of any world like this or any other which has societies this committed to recreating that period in old Earth's history. It may be a reenactment society, but there wouldn't be the travel restrictions. Boynall. I know this, and it is the fear, but it may be facing this fear that will bring about better, of course. Yes, said Biella. I don't wish to assume anything, but now I have another small story for you concerning this. Eluminia held off from adding to her thread. It could wait until after Biella's story. And Boynall added, and I would love him to stay with me if this is what's to be, but I can't seem to get things together around here. Biella began the story. There came a time when a young man in his heart encountered unusually unusual circumstances. They lived their lives according to anomalies and in attunement. But these had been circumstances that happened to them rather than them reacting. These unusual circumstances caused them to live in different places for a while. They communicated regularly, however. Their relationship changed. Their relationship changed. They would not have thought so, but it improved. They found new ways to relate. Within their separate lives, they discovered new aspects about themselves. They found they could refine aspects of their individuality and physicality that had been unresolved before. They were constantly communicating. Their communications reached a deeper level, one more profound. The distance provided them with perspective on each other, which had been hard to see when together. From afar, they saw even more deeply into each other's hearts. Biella continued. The young man was profoundly affected by these changes in their relationship. He had always looked to the grand theme. He felt many instances of this change had been indicated to him. He had been preparing for it for a long time. He had been able to be at peace with this temporary separation. That too was profound for him. To love his heart the way he did and to be able to be at peace within his heart. This was the beginning of true freedom. His heart too found lessons and insights. But this was not the end of the story, for circumstances again happened, and the young man found himself living in the same house as his heart, but in a new arrangement. There were others also. Their circle expanded. This led to an entirely new way of being for them both. Their relationship, their incredible lifelong friendship continued to improve. But they had long since come to learn that if they were true and impeccable in following the circumstances and anomalies in their lives, it always led to magic. A message was waiting from Boynall. I have been given an opportunity for a 3-month break. I was doing a counseling course and it wasn't working out. And I told the people I needed to go realize something. And 3 months is the time allowed in CM on a visa. And I'm at the point of going back or letting go. Maybe me moving on will let our relationship become stronger through time. Boynall added, Hey, it makes the heart grow fonder, I suppose. Thanks. I think I am there now. Impeccability is always to the longer term context. We have to trust the shorter term will take care of itself. But it is about being too eager. It will be. It will. He's a clever boy. Biella continued her thought. Biella continued her thought. That can make us pushy. It can stifle others from learning at their pace and what they need to learn. Nora added. About time he started to let go a bit. Seems control is a bit of an issue. I am too eager. I have been sitting around in this place for a long time on my own, said Boynall. 3 months is nothing anyway, put in Eluminia. She wanted to get back to the mystery, but the timing wasn't there. Hey, it isn't really, is it? Nope, a blink, a drop in the ocean. Yeah, Eluminia was allowing Boynall time to assimilate, to come to grips with this issue. Time for him to get comfortable with this new reality he now found himself in. Thanks. Fear is a monster until we face it. But there was too little. Eluminia looked at Biella, who said, Where's the abandonment? It's such a short time. You'll always be there for him anyway. just in a different way. In all likelihood, that different way of communicating will strengthen the bond. Happy to share. Hey, I can connect with him from afar. It may also let him see the world is so much more than a small town, Boynall replied. Eluminia turned to the group. What is the problem here? Boynall seems to understand everything, the entire problem. He's part of it. Yet something's missing. He can't shoot, he can't shoot, her mum said. Kia and Nora gave him mock slaps, chuckling happily. He can't pull the trigger, they said in unison. Her mum is an alien, is a blue alien. You should have checked with Grandpa here, they teased Camelius. He probably really pulled the trigger when he was a young man. They giggled at the joke, which had no effect on either her mum or Camelius. Yes, Ursula says, he has nothing that presses him, that allows him to come to a decision. He is lost inside his own sensibility. What a statement. He is lost inside his own sensibility. Wow, wow, wow. He is lost inside his own sensibility. Ursula knows, because she was also. Biella replied to Boynall, yes, that's huge. Perspective shifting. A comment applied to what Eluminia said as well. Hey, it was for my son I gave up my life and the way I was, to grow spiritually. Biella. In these adventures, life changes, alignments to the bigger picture. That is always a recurring theme. We get kicked out of the nest every time we become entrenched in a perspective. We get kicked out of the nest every time we become entrenched in a perspective. I didn't want him to feel the hurts I felt. Seems I'm still being kicked. The nest is getting smaller and smaller, Boynall said. A bit of guilt, maybe, Marco observed. Culture put in. Until we learn to always be shifting perspective and looking at everything from multiple perspectives, as a matter of course, we are going to get that boot every time we get stuck in one. I think the universe is seeking for me to fly the nest. Nothing new grows in the comfort zone. It's always so obvious at some point, yes? Biella asked. Hey, it is. Biella laughed. Time to release the intensity. I'm laughing in joy over here at myself. Many of us have been where you are, Boynall added. Now it is just having the focus and mindset. Eluminia smacked her hand down one on the other. There it is, she grinned. You just said it. Now apply that. We're always such clueless idiots until the obvious kicks in, Biella said. One thing I will add. External discussion. Hey, I know I am a fracking idiot. It is one of the reasons for our oral tradition. The main reason is for the input from the universe. The public part of it is an opportunity for external expression, Biella said. External expression? Finally. I mean, these pre-obvious discussions, they are a mess when only done internally within ourselves. Those seldom lead to any clarity. We have to make shortcuts inside. It's very different when talking it out or writing it out, what you've been doing now in this conversation. But it can also be a conversation with the universe. That is what many of my public conversations are, and Biella explained. Boynall replied, it is good to talk things through. It brings clarity and allows us to close doors to get direction. There's a lot more to it, Eluminia said, mostly to herself. Public expression is a powerful action, Biella elaborated. When we simply say something or write it down, it's not quite real yet because there is no commitment to it. One could say intent doesn't know you are serious about it yet. But when we express ourselves publicly, even if it is only to one another, there is a commitment to that. That is assuming we are earnest and sincere. The act of making a public expression, a public statement, if we really put ourselves into it. if what we say is staked to ourselves, becomes a gesture of intent. It is very, very powerful. I, I agree. Not only in the ripple effects, but in the clearing of ourselves as well. Does any of that make sense at all? Biella asked. It gives direction where it may have been doubt. Hey, Boynall answered. Eluminia added. It is the communication act itself that has the power. Streaming ourselves again, Boynall said interestingly. The mind wanders in many ways. We can become internally confused with the situation we are in. Biella wondered if he had maybe meant wandered, but it made sense either way. She enjoyed the multi-threadedness of it. It is an amazing thing, Biella continued, when I explain to someone not familiar with the mechanism that much of what I am saying in public is purely for me. They sometimes don't believe me, but when seen in this context, it is apparent. There is, of course, a potential value in what I communicate publicly to others, but I would never assume that to be a fact. No new noble ever would. There is, of course, potential value in what I communicate potentially publicly to others, but I would never assume that to be a fact. No new noble ever would. We are sharing ourselves and thoughts and feelings. Yes, when we have to put ourselves on the line, as in when we make a public expression, there is a profound difference. Expression can take many forms. It doesn't have to be only be in words. It can be through art, dance, music, anything, the way we dress, everything, Biella said. Boynall added, and how we are seeing the eternal, internal and external world. I know this is what I do anyway. It helps me to go over things. I would maybe suggest shifting from a questioning style of expression to one that puts out there whatever you are willing to commit to in the here and now that you are present in. It may change and morph later, of course, but for now, in your now, it will force a tightening, Biella offered. And we just never know who may be going through something similar, and it may bring clarity for them also. As in, it's from me with intention, Boynall replied. There is a problem, Eluminia said. He needs to communicate for himself and unhook from the idea of communicating to others and of helping others. It is a fatal misconception that we can. It's distorting his intent. In saying what he continually thinks might be useful for others, he misses dealing with what is actually relevant and useful to himself. It mires him in perpetual putting stuff out there with no real resolution. His focus is off, as he himself even said. We often say the truth to ourselves, just not in the way we expect. We have to listen with an abstract ear. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Very powerful, very powerful. But just refreshing so I can see if there are any more comments. We have to listen with an abstract ear. It will force the change of direction of the spiraling, Biella said, prompting Boynall. Because questions also present other questions, Boynall said. Intent is the key to it all. We have to sharpen and refine our intent. Biella was trying to lay out the point. Boynall had to come to it himself. We'll make a cup of coffee and return, says Norma. And Ramsey's here. Hello, Ramsey. Hello, hello, hello. We are deep into this chapter, Ramsey. This chapter is about a capital H hearing. Biella is demonstrating, and through an anomaly that's come about, Boynall is sharing this personal problem and sharing it very anomalously. And there's anomalies on top of anomalies. And the whole chapter is about anomalies, right? And the capital H hearing also, the demonstration. So a lot going on. A lot going on. All right, cool, Norma. Cool, cool, cool. No worries, no worries. So we'll see you soon. Yes, and love you too. And love you too, Norma. Yes, absolutely. Brilliant. All right. Intent is the key to it all, says Biella. We have to sharpen and refine our intent. Biella was trying to lay out the point. Boynall had to come to it by himself. Put it as a matter of fact at a particular time, but open to interpretation, Boynall asked. He was asking himself really. I think this is from not having faith in myself. I do this, and it is probably a cop-out to leave it open, he answered himself. Biella extended the conception. Most people have many intents. They are all over the place. They contradict. Some are square circle intents that cannot manifest. Their intents change all the time, so they cannot get any sense at all of how the anomalies connect to their intent. But once we refine our intent, hone it to a point, the connection of the anomalies to the external events or flow, circumstances, happenstances, etc., of our lives can be seen clearly. How they connect to our intent. That is when we come to see the continual magic that is a way to live, if we choose. Biella added. The process of public expression is one marvelous way of honing our intents to that sharp point of functionality. Biella had to clarify something Boynall had mentioned. When you said, put it as a matter of fact at a particular time, but open to interpretation, it's a big deal. How do you mean, big deal? Boynall asked. Good. Now I can connect to what Eluminia said earlier. It is because I expect that your audience is still other people. When you are expressing yourself, you're taking the perceptions and understandings of people in general into account. Yes, Biella did not wait for an answer. That taking into account is a bias. But if you were to shift, make your expressions a communication purely to yourself, a mechanism for reminding yourself of what is true and valuable to yourself, it all shifts. You will likely find this communication to yourself goes via the universe. I can agree with you there, implying he wasn't agreeing to most of what I said. I think I still have the thing of wanting to be accepted by my family, which I know isn't doing me good. Wow. Bubbles come from the depths. Bubbles come from the depths, said Camellius. Bubbles come from the depths, said Camellius. So my voice is going a bit, so I can't do Camellius's voice so well. He could hone in so wonderfully. And my nose is a bit blocked as well. So I'm not doing Biella's voice so well either. It gets tuned, Biella said. All the allowances that were being made, that openness to interpretation, for instance, they all go away. Your intent gets honed to you, and that is a very, very big deal indeed. Indeed. I will work on this. I understand you here, Boynall said. Biella switched it up. Yes, you are different. Always have been. Acceptance will come when you fully accept whatever variation of different you happen to be, or at least it seems you will happen to become. Yes? Wow. Acceptance will come when you fully accept whatever variation of different you happen to be, or at least it seems you will happen to become. Wow. Biella is taking a small chance in asserting such a definitive perspective of Boynall to him, Eluminia said to the group. That is why she asked yes at the end. It is to provide the opportunity for Boynall to disagree or correct. The yes is an assertion by Biella that she knows it is a guess, however educated it may be. It is the humility of a new noble. She smiled love at Biella. Boynall said more. I think in this outside hope for acceptance, I am probably seeking inward acceptance to who I am now, and needing this affirmed by others does me no good whatsoever. The com spelled out whatsoever, seeming to do so to indicate Boynall's emphasis. Watch her move on right away, Illumina explained Biella's finesse. It does no good to dwell on and focus on points like that. It only serves to connect to the underlying motivation that stimulated it in the first place. Biella indeed moved on. To me, the task and process of unhooking from convention has been fantastic. It is a fantastic guideline. When stuck, simply look to whatever is in the opposite direction. Simply look to whatever is the opposite of convention. And that, for me and my dear friend, has always been a fantastic guide. Doing the opposite of convention, or somewhere in the region of opposite, always led to awesomeness. Eluminia added. That was a long time ago. But for those of us that grew up on worlds where the new nobility were not part of our society, convention is a much, much stronger influence. It is why Biella speaks in the present tense also. Even so, she is extremely unhooked. The force of convention, however, can be strong. It sneaks in through unfamiliar circumstances. Jessica says, I do have to go, but before I go, I wanted to say that this chapter has been very enlightening and extraordinary. There is a lot of input so far. I've enjoyed hearing this chapter. Yes, Jessica, yes. This is a chapter which we have to read with capital H hearing, not about what Boynal says, because he's kind of right? But to look at the deeper pattern. Boynal is anomalous within himself. Boynal is an anomaly within the greater context of the writing of the book. And Boynal is an anomaly within Biella's story, right? Within the book, right? So there's this multiplicity of anomalousness, right? And his story is anomalous in that it enables exemplification of these themes and topics that have come up earlier with Camellius, well, starting with Shah, really. Shah, Ursula, Camellius, Ursula again, Hyla, right? And now Boynall. It's just an incredible story. What I would recommend, Jessica, if you have the time, take this chapter, and if you don't have access to it, let me know. I'll email it to you. Take this chapter and go through it and do repeat backs and takeaways. Treat it as a session, right? Of Way-of-Impeccability. Well, it's part of the Moreness-Project, right? We never got as far as that, but there really is, and when it's in the program format, there will be tasks and exercises and those deep, fantastic questions and so on. But this, you will get so much out of it when you go through it yourself and unpack it and do repeat backs and takeaways, and just pull out all the layers, because there's so much in this, so much. I mean, this one chapter could you could use this and build a whole life from it, right? And keep going back to it and use it as a blueprint for living. Just in this chapter alone, there are others too, but in this one in particular, right? It's quite an extraordinary chapter. Yes, it really, really makes me super happy to hear that it is connecting to you in that particular way, because it's so different from the other chapters. I was a bit concerned that it may be, it's because like Beena said, it's real. We're getting real here, and I was concerned that it may not be fun enough or be so contrasting to the other chapters that it may seem boring by comparison. But for me, it's not, because it's about the real stuff, like Mina said, and it's more exciting because it's real. Right? This is an incredibly real chapter. This super, super real. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This is just great. I look very forward to hearing more comments on this, and I look forward to your comments too, Ramsey. Very much. I look forward to them. I love hearing your comments, and yours, of course, Norma, all the time. You know that already, but I'll say it again anyway. Uh, the force of this is Biella, right? She's speaking. Eluminia commenting on Biella. The force of convention, however, can be strong. It sneaks in through unfamiliar circumstances. We have to be ever vigilant. There is not necessarily anything wrong with convention. It is only the automatic doing of things that is the problem. Convention is a powerful force that way, one easily recognized. one we can use splendidly to develop the habit of living deliberately. Yes, yes. This is a profound habit. Eluminia smiled, that delightful smile of joy of hers at the seeming contradiction. Biella responded to what Boynall had said. Yes, on the acceptance, Boynall. A classic square circle. She laughed good-naturedly. It can't happen that way, yes? Huh. I always seemed to grow when I'd done the unthinkable, Boynall said, the entire point of the conversation coming out of him, his peculiar grammar adding to it. Bam! Nora said loudly, making a key jump. They laughed with abandon, delighted for Boynall. Yes, 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 Biella exclaimed with enthusiasm. I get excited by awesome sauce, an ancient word appropriate with Boynall. But think about that. How else can we get outside the bubble of the known? I got locked up 2 years ago for reporting the chemtrails, Boynall added unexpectedly. This was amazing, with many, many implications. That was the beginning of seeking. Biella laughed happily, hooking into this amazing turn. Awesome. I love it. My laughs are laughs of joy, by the way. She did not want to let his awareness of the point of the entire conversation slip away. Boynall indicated, laughing. It was an awakening. Ah, Biella, I love you so. You just changed something that could have gone down into sadness and, you know, morbidity, not feeling self-pity and all of that, the commiseration. And she just changed it with a laugh, right? Not making it that. And also, it's in the past tense, so we can laugh at the past. It's just genius here, absolute genius, right? And he says, it was an awakening. Shift the whole point. It could have gone completely the other way. Now it goes up into moreness just because of that reaction from Biella. And this is her not just reacting to it, being very deliberate. She's making space for things to go in a different way, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. When there's a vacuum, things seek to fill it in. So by making space in a particular direction, and Biella takes the comment of potentially going down into going up. She's leading by walking backwards. Very particular, deliberate skill, right? You can add that to your dictionary of power. Leading by walking backwards. Lots of explanation to it elsewhere, but you can figure it out pretty much. Let's see what Norma's saying. Oh, oh. Well, what's tomorrow morning? Okay. Always okay. Always okay. Wonderful, Norma. Always, always, always. Always, always, always. Brilliant, brilliant. I look forward to discussing it. And we'll reread it tomorrow anyway. We'll go through the detailed, go over in the lives on Monday to Friday, right? That's what we do. So we'll be going over it anyway. Eluminia said to the group, we can't be preemptive and influence how someone tells a story. There are many, many ways to tell a story, many moods and perspectives to tell it from. Biella has preempted the telling of Boynall's story getting locked up from being told as a tale of pity or trauma. Biella has preempted the telling of Boynall's, getting locked up. Right. Uh, from being told as a tale of pity or trauma. He sort of has to relate to it with humor and positivity now. We can always laugh at things afterwards, no matter how troublesome it was at the time. Having a positive perspective on it afterwards allows us to extract value from the experience, if we haven't already. A gift to Boynall, what Biella just did. I explained this, but here comes Illumini and explains. I should have just kept my explanation, but all right. I just love it though. It was such a pure, beautiful gift of nobility, what she was doing, right? Uh, she was helping him in a big way, but helping him in an open way, right? Not in a way of helping via the normal helping, right? It's a deep sophistication to it. I love the magic. This is Biella now again. I love the magic. To me, when you said locked up, I saw the coming magic. Yes, so good, Biella said, confirming Illuminia's perspective. Also letting Boynall know what she was doing, the way of the new nobility. See, even though she created a space which he automatically went in, which you can say is maybe a bit of guiding or steering, but she created a possibility. Of course, he could resist it, right? But now she tells him precisely what she does so that he can look back. But now he's already in that, right? Which the mood is there already. It's hard to change moods. But if you now really want to, you can now that you know. You know, he might say, well, no, this was really terrible and miserable and horrible and traumatic. And if it still is, then he could say, no, that's not how it is for me. Right? He has that opportunity. This is the impeccability of the new nobility. Right? The exquisite impeccability. Unbelievable, right? The ethics of it all. Just brilliant. And she prompted, put in the loony bin for reporting what is, Boynall said. Wow, wow, a little surprise here that we weren't expecting, right? He wasn't just locked up, he was put in the loony bin. That's quite severe, Boynall said. Biella laughed again, just pure laughter. No commentary in it. Cool, she said, using one of Boynall's terms. But it was my internal soul that said to do something. Boynall was finding a part of himself now, a necessary part. Wow, I'm looking forward to the capital R reading of this. Man, this is just potent here. Awesome, Biella encouraged. There must have been some great perspective shifting. Hey, it allowed me to see how unconscious everything around me was. It allowed me to see how unconscious everything was around me. Yes, I'm at one of those places again, said Boynall. Biella took it to mean spiritually, but only provisionally, just in case. Biella decided to make a leap, jump the conversation. She wanted to introduce a critical perspective, one vital to the new nobility. It was what allowed them to make sense of everything as well, Biella said. That is the point of it all, the meaning of life. The meaning of life, developing and enhancing awareness. She was making connection to Boynall's experience and what came from it. She hoped he would see how she had connected it all to her statement. A awareness of ourselves. Biella stayed in the meta theme. Yep, for in the end, we are the universe and it is us. Yes, a so fear is the illusion. Biella rounded out the meta perspective. The whole process of the universe trying to become fully conscious of itself. So simple. The worst has already happened to you, and it was found to be good. Yes, the meta, the meta perspective was having an effect on Boynall. A, and it will seek to know one way or another. So in holding back, I am fighting myself and the universe. A, very much so. After the initial scorting myself. Yep, fighting the you, not much fun. But Biella was keeping it casual, light. Boynall was in a good place. But it was just thought of can't. But it was just thought of can't, Boynall added. Very peculiarly expressed there. Boynall slipped fully into the style of language from the young man's time, which seemed to be similar to Boynall's. She wanted nothing to jar him from what was happening inside right now. Once we get aligned, oh man, every tiny little thing is just exactly how we want it. So cool. Yeah. Nora suppressed a giggle, but he jumped to Ursula, who scowled at her in mock outrage, as she too suppressed it. Dream Deer was much amused at this, but laughed silently. I get there, then I seem not to be. This is probably because I have more to realize, Boynall said. That never stopped, but Biella didn't want to point it out. So, Even I can ask you now the same question at the start. What's the problem again? Biella laughed delightedly. I mean, I don't see one anymore. Yes. It's like there never was one. Yes. There isn't one. It's in my mind. Biella laughed more. She was so happy. Happy for him. That made her happy. It's if I have the intent, Boynall added, noticeably saying intent, not intention like it did before. Oh, very good upgrade there, subconsciously. So profound. Eluminia said to the group, now that is the crux of it all. He knows. He knows what the missing part is. He knows what's needed. But he doesn't yet know how to activate and awaken intent. I will explain later. It's our theme, remember? She was challenging them to put it together with anomalies. How the anomalies were the connecting link for Boynall. Or more accurately, what he needed to connect to in order to connect his intent. Ursula added, I see now why you keep on repeating. Without application, it's all meaningless. Yeah, so awesome. Biella was thoroughly inside her language immersion now. This time, everyone giggled or smiled. I think the universe likes me the way I am, with a Frackerton C, Boynall said. Maybe I should go with it. And on the more to realize part, Biella said, picture an inverted pyramid on your head, funneling the realizations into your brain. I have thought that. Now, as you realize more, that danged pyramid keeps growing. But of course, so does the awesomeness, the joyous wonder of that growing inverted pyramid, for it assuages our biggest fear, that of boredom. Thank you. I appreciate your time, Boynall said, just like that. The universe had a marvelous way of bringing great conversations to an end at the right time. Biella kept to her style. Any time. Most cool. Later. Likewise, said Boynall, and terminated the connection. Then a very, very curious message appeared on the com. A termination of connection message. A termination of connection notice from the conversation with Boynall. It read, sent from mobile. Choose a sticker or emoticon. End chapter 15. That doesn't happen in their time on the com, right? This is something from another time. So this is very anomalous, but we're going to hear more about this anomaly in the next chapter. Wonderful, wonderful. Wow, I'm really thrilled. I'm really enjoying this chapter. Much, much, much more than I remembered from, because I haven't read it for a while now. From when it was written. Ah, man, it's wonderful. It's most wonderful. It's most wonderful. This is just excellent. Ah, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. All right, so and then next week we'll do an anomaly of Boynall. And just go back to where it was for tomorrow, where we started today. In terms of we'll go over the detailed uh, capital R reading of all this because there's lots to unpack here, right? And this is something to be aware of. I know I've said it many times and I'll keep repeating it. Just to be aware that not all things can just be read from start to finish, right? Even though we understand everything going through it, understanding doesn't mean we know it. And understanding does not mean that we can use it. Yeah. So when we unpack it, and especially something so dense as this, with so many layers, so much packed into it, it's very dense. There's lots of unpacking here. When something's this dense, densely packed, right, then that unpacking is absolutely critical. And the value we get when we unpack it is incredible, right? This is what capital R reading is. It is something to really, really learn the skill and practice. Otherwise, we don't get that application. We don't get it into ourselves. We don't make it our own. And we see this with Boynall, right? How even at the end here, he still is saying things in a maybe kind of a way, right? he still hasn't fully committed to saying, well, now that I've cleared that up, I gotta go, Uh, I'll like communicate, say something or say hello from the new place or whatever, right? He's still not quite there. He hasn't made that connection to application. And well, you can't push somebody into that. That's their choice, right? So it's a tough situation when you see it's not there, right? Now he terminated the year before Boynal. I'm getting my things all the B's mixed up here, and before Biella has a chance to extrapolate and elucidate on um, uh, on application, right? That she needs to do this, right? And she hasn't had a chance. She wants to and wanted to, because it's the last thing in all of this, right? First you have awareness, then you got discernment, then you got understanding. That's exactly what's been going on here, right? Boynall brought with him some awareness and some discernment and some understanding, but the missing part was application. He doesn't know how to apply, and this is why she's been elaborating on anomalies. And because it is through anomalies and their connection to attunement that we get to apply, we get to do. But also, he needs to understand the concept of applying, and that just understanding something in your brain is not enough, which is so clearly the case with him. Right? So this is a deep point. Now, Ursula makes that point. She says, I see now why you say so often, so regularly, so repeatedly. I forget how she expressed it. Without application, it's all meaningless, right? I mean, it's like a point that she makes. Now, it's already come up many times in the story before. It's why it's not elaborated on here. But I think I will maybe make a comment there from Biella to say yes, an absolutely critical point, one which Boynall is still not getting, right? Very important. So, and this is my takeaway from it, that if we don't apply, it's all meaningless. I mean, it's just so huge here, huge, huge, huge. And the application that I'm talking about here is based on Jessica's comment somewhat, right? In this, that we have to take the density of this chapter and go through it slowly and unpack it. I mean, me, if I'm doing this like back in the day, this would take me a week or a month to go through a chapter like this. I never encountered ever chapters like this, but I definitely unpacked things always. I did capital R readings with everything that I read. It doesn't matter what it was, when required, right? And when it was very dense, I would take that long. There were a few exceptions where I found density of this nature, and I did. I spent years unpacking it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's very powerful. So, because you need to make it your own and apply it, of course. That's my whole life is the application, not just of that unpacking, but the application of what I put together and created. I created a system for myself that I could live. Yeah. And that's very important. That's very, very helpful. Now, one doesn't necessarily have to do that for everybody. If you find a system that is already there that works for you, great. But I looked most thoroughly with great impeccability and thoroughness and scrupulousness and diligence and conscientiousness, and found bits here, bits there that I'd already worked out. I hadn't realized that I'd already created. When I came to that realization, yes, there was new stuff that I learned. Obviously, you're always learning new stuff, but most of it I figured out because I didn't have access at the time. I had to figure it out for myself, which is a great boon, a great blessing. But once you figure out a system to live, that's quite easy, actually. By the way, it's not that hard. It just takes a bit of time and patience and difficulty. You soon recognize what you want. The hard part is then living it, right? So once I'd done that, which was, as a young man, then I started living it, from that time that's mentioned here, that time of going out into the desert and all that time of the gift of intent, right? That was the turning point from putting it together, creating your system, which had already been created at that point, to going and living it. Yes. And that's the gift of intent, because the intent was to have that system, was a deep intent. This was from age 10 was my intent, ongoing intent. And then it changed, right? From an intent to acquiring to an intent to application. And this is unpacking here. When you unpack it and do repeat backs and takeaways, if you don't know what those are, I don't know, ask in comments or, look up in other things. Tons of stuff about repeat backs and takeaways. But when you go through this one chapter, it's like a book. There's so much. It just this one chapter, the density of it. I mean, this could be elaborated into a book. It's a ton of stuff here. If you were if you were to go through like this week now, when we're going to do the capital R reading, I doubt if we'll get through all of it. If you take all of that and write it out, you're going to have tons of text. It'll be a lot. Powerful stuff, and you could put it together, it's nice. I like to leave stories where, you can do that unpacking for yourself. Because if you unpack everything and write it out in detail, now this chapter is already quite expanded a lot, right, for this purpose. But the points brought up are so profound, so life-changing, and that it being spread out is very important. And look what Jessica says, right? And she's familiar with much of this already, right? So it's very cool. Most excellent. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. And love you all. And Ramsey, any comments before I go? I love that you're here, Ramsey. I miss you, man. I miss you. I miss your comments. I miss you. I miss you. Yeah. Again, I don't do this with any expectations always, right? So whatever comes is always a great gift. And that's mentioned here. And because reducing our wants to nothing is an incredible skill. Now, most people mistake that. They misunderstand that. They confuse reducing our wants to nothing with reducing our likes to nothing. I want nothing, but I like everything. Well, except vegetables, pretty much, and eggs. but but my point is, I have lots and lots of likes. I really like pretty much everything, right? Very few things I don't like. Yeah. So So not wanting is not the same as not liking. I enjoy what I like tremendously. Yeah. Norma, also, when you do hear this, that's why you mentioned earlier about me always being positive and sunny, right? It's unrelenting positivity, but it comes from this understanding that not wanting is not the same as not liking. Yes, I like everything. And because I don't want, whatever I get is the greatest gift. So it allows me to enjoy so tremendously. It's why I'm always positive, because I'm always enjoying myself. I'm always having a blast, right? It's a very powerful way to be. Very powerful way to be. Yeah. That's why I enjoy when I have some company, like when Beena's here or sometimes others come. I hope that like Norma will come and join us sometime. We heard when Jessica's here, because then I get to share the joy. And when we get to share joy, it multiplies exponentially. Right? It's very powerful. Very, very powerful. All right. On Ramsey, you still there? Maybe Ramsey had to go as well. All right. In case I gave you some space in case you had a comment there, because I know Norma had to go already as well. And so did Jessica. Yeah, I know it was long. It's a very long chapter, this. I mean, the actual reading of it, it took an hour and a half just to read this half of the chapter. No, but it's a powerful chapter, very magical, powerful chapter. Lots of magic to it. We may come back to this chapter at another point in time, and break it down even smaller, and just do a capital R reading, go through it for as long as it takes, right? Uh, Just do that. I think that'd be very powerful. All right. All right. I think there anything else? Nope. That's all there is to it. And just on Biella, on Beena's behalf, I'll say goodbye also. I mean, I know she wanted to be here. She was intending to be here, but they went to another city. They're on vacation, and they went to another city while on vacation. And I guess they didn't get back in time. So, all right. Anyway, I'll say bye-bye on Beena's behalf. Bye-bye, everybody. End meeting for